Let me guess, he's not texting back. He's gone quiet. And every part of you is screaming, should I reach out? Should I block him? Should I do something, anything to get a reaction? Stop. Pause right here. You didn't click on this video by accident. You're here because something inside of you knows the old way. It doesn't work. You're tired of chasing, tired of waiting, and so done feeling powerless. This isn't just another don't text first video. This isn't recycled advice about playing hard to get or pretending you're busy. This is strategy rooted in self-respect. And if you watch till the end, I'm going to show you the exact shift that flips the power dynamic and makes him realize what he lost without you lifting a finger. See, when a man pulls away, we panic. We want to fix, explain, or make him remember what we had. But here's the truth no one told you. Men don't respond to words, they respond to energy. And when you stop texting first, when you don't block, when you don't react at all, something clicks in his brain. Not because you were petty, but because you were powerful. In this video, you'll learn how to be the woman who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't break down because she knows the comeback is always stronger when it's him doing the chasing. Ready to change the game? Let's dive in. The urge to text him first is powerful, almost like a reflex. You see his name in your phone, and suddenly you're in your head wondering what he's thinking, if he misses you, or if maybe he just forgot. And your instinct is to bridge the silence, to say something so it doesn't feel so empty. But here's the truth. When you text first, especially after he pulls away, you're not reconnecting. You're relieving his discomfort, not yours. Every time you reach out first, you reset the dynamic back in his favor. You're telling him without saying a word, you can disappear, give me crumbs, and I'll still be here. And the worst part? He knows it. He may not consciously think she's losing value, but subconsciously, that's exactly what's happening. He feels no urgency, no consequence, no mystery. Men are wired for pursuit, not because it's a game, but because investment creates value. What we work for, we cherish. What comes too easy, we question, or worse, take for granted. When you stop texting first, it's not about punishing him. It's about rebalancing the energy. It's you stepping back into your worth, letting the silence speak for you. You're saying, I don't need to force anything. I'm not afraid of losing what doesn't want to stay. And that's when the shift happens. He starts to notice the quiet. He wonders what you're up to. He checks your profile more than you realize. And then he starts to feel the space you left. That space used to be filled with your good morning texts, your check-ins, your effort. Now it's empty. And that emptiness becomes curiosity. That curiosity turns into attraction. But none of that happens if you text him first. So the next time your fingers hover over your screen, aching to break the silence, remember this. Your silence is not a loss of connection. It's the beginning of your power returning. Let him be the one to wonder. Let him come to you. You're not ignoring him. You're remembering who you are. Blocking feels like control. It gives you that immediate hit of power, like slamming a door shut and walking away. In the moment, it feels strong. It feels final. But what if I told you that blocking him, especially when you're still emotionally charged, often does more harm than good? Let's be real. Most women don't block from a place of detachment. They block from a place of hurt, anger, or desperation. It's not about cutting him off. It's about hoping that by cutting him off, he'll finally feel something, that he'll panic, that he'll miss you instantly, that blocking will shock him into caring again. But here's the problem. It doesn't usually land that way. To a man, especially one who's emotionally avoidant or unsure, being blocked doesn't equal I care deeply and I'm protecting myself. What he often hears is she's still reacting. She's still emotionally attached. She still wants something from me, even if it's just a reaction. And once he senses that emotional charge, his power increases. It confirms what he already suspects, that you're still thinking about him, that he still holds emotional weight in your life. And that gives him the space to stay detached, or worse, to frame you as dramatic or bitter, even if you're not. Blocking, when done prematurely or out of emotion, cuts your own power short. It tells him, you still matter enough to make me act out of pain. But what if instead you just disengaged without a scene? What if you didn't block, didn't lash out, didn't chase or react, but simply became unavailable in a way that left him guessing? That's what leaves a lasting impression. See, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And blocking feels a lot more like hate than indifference. It screams, you still affect me. But true power is when you don't need to block him. You're just living, thriving, and emotionally unfazed, and he sees it. That energy, It's unforgettable. It's unsettling in the best way. Because now he's left wondering why you didn't react, why you didn't fight, why you didn't chase. And that's the emotional tension that creates desire. Now, are there situations where blocking is necessary? Absolutely, especially when there's toxicity, manipulation, or abuse involved. Your peace and safety always come first. But if you're blocking him to get a reaction, prove a point, or create a false sense of control, you're giving him exactly what he expects, a signal that he still has influence. The real power move: don't block. Just stop giving access, quietly, confidently, and without announcement. Let him feel your absence without the drama. Because when you stop performing your worth, that's when he finally starts to recognize it. There's one shift that changes everything. When it comes to how a man perceives you, values you, and decides whether or not to come back. And it's not a line you text. It's not a clever comeback. It's not even about looking hotter or posting cryptic quotes on your story. The shift is energetic, and it happens the moment you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. That sounds simple, but it's not easy, because for so long, we're taught that love means effort, that if someone is pulling away, we should try harder, love louder, be more available, more understanding, more easy to be with. But what actually gets his attention isn't your availability, it's your absence paired with your self-possession. Here's what I mean. When a man senses that your energy is no longer orbiting around him, that you're no longer waiting, wondering, hoping, his brain registers loss, not just of your presence, but of your focus. And to the masculine mind, attention is everything. If he knows you're still emotionally tied to him, even in silence, he's not worried. He feels in control. But the moment that energy detaches, the moment your world starts revolving around you instead of him, that's when it hits. Because attention is currency, and suddenly you're no longer spending it on him. You're not checking his stories. You're not waiting for the text. You're not sitting in what ifs. You're investing your time, your glow, and your focus back into your own life. That shift, not in words but in energy, is what makes him stop and think, wait, did I lose her? Not did I upset her? Not is she mad at me? But did I actually lose her presence, her attention, her softness? And that's the kind of thought that lingers in his mind at 2 a.m. when everything is quiet. That question will echo louder than any message you could have sent. You become the one that got away without trying to be. You become unforgettable without saying a word. You become valuable again because you stopped putting him at the center of your universe. And no, this isn't about manipulation. This is about reclaiming the parts of yourself that you gave away too easily. Your time, your energy, your emotional labor, and channeling it back into the one person who will never abandon you, you. That's the shift that gets his attention. Not a strategy, but a state of being. Not a performance, but a realignment. Because the moment you stop trying to get him back, is the moment he starts trying to get you back. The moment you pull back is the moment everything starts to shift. Not just in the dynamic with him, but within you. It's subtle at first. There's that discomfort, the silence, the temptation to reach out and break the stillness. But if you can resist that urge, if you can sit in the quiet and not chase, something powerful happens. He feels it, even if you haven't said a word, even if he doesn't consciously register it at first. He feels the void where your attention used to be. The warmth you were offering freely, gone. The check-ins, the just thinking about you texts, the emotional support you gave, even when he didn't ask for it, all of it suddenly missing. And that absence hits harder than any argument or emotional message ever could. You're no longer available on demand, no longer feeding his ego, soothing his doubts, or holding the connection together by yourself. And while it might seem like he's fine, like he's unaffected, trust me, the silence grows louder with time, especially if he's used to you always being there. But pulling back doesn't just change his experience, it changes yours. You start seeing things more clearly. You notice how much of yourself you were giving away without getting anything in return. You begin to feel your own power again. Not the power to control someone else, but the power to stop needing to. And the beautiful thing is, when you pull back, you give him space to step up if he chooses to. You stop forcing, fixing, or filling the silence, and that allows him to feel what life is like, without you actively holding space for him. That space becomes the mirror. It reflects his actions back at him, and he starts to question, where did she go? Why isn't she trying anymore? Did she move on? That's when curiosity kicks in. That's when desire slowly starts to return. Not because you played a game, but because you stopped being the only one trying. That imbalance he didn't notice before, he feels it now. And sometimes pulling back reveals the truth you didn't want to see. Sometimes they don't come back. And that's just as powerful, because then you know it was never real effort. It was just convenience. But when the connection is real, when there was something meaningful there, your pullback becomes magnetic. It draws him in without force, because now he's the one questioning what he lost. Pulling back is not rejection. It's not punishment. It's a recalibration, a return to balance. You stop fighting for a place in his life, and he's left to decide if he's willing to fight for a place in yours. And that's when the dynamic changes. Not when you explain yourself, not when you beg, but when your silence starts speaking louder than anything you ever said before. Rebuilding your feminine energy after being hurt, ghosted, or emotionally drained isn't about becoming soft or submissive. It's about coming back to yourself, to the version of you that existed before the overthinking, the anxiety, the self-doubt, and the chase. It's about reclaiming the version of you who knows she's enough without needing validation to prove it. Feminine energy is magnetic. It doesn't chase, it attracts. But the problem is, when we feel ignored or rejected, we often slip into our masculine control, logic, action. We start overanalyzing, strategizing, texting, fixing. We try to do more to get love, instead of receiving more by simply being. That's where everything starts to disconnect. Rebuilding your feminine energy means letting go of the urge to force outcome. It means detaching your self-worth from how much attention he gives you. It's the quiet power of being present, intuitive, and emotionally anchored. Not because you want him to come back, but because you're finally returning to your own emotional home. And you don't have to change your personality to do this. You don't have to be overly soft-spoken, wear dresses, or meditate for hours. Reclaiming your feminine energy is more about how you move through the world. Are you responding or reacting? Are you grounded or grasping? Are you seeking outside of you or building from within? When a woman is in her feminine, she's not easy to forget. Why? Because her energy feels like safety, like peace, like warmth. Not because she's trying to be perfect, but because she's so at home with herself, you can't help but feel drawn in. And ironically, this is when the shift happens in him too. When you stop clinging, when you stop proving, when you stop bending over backward. Suddenly, he's not being pursued, and that contrast creates tension. A man who once felt your energy chasing him now feels your absence, and it does something primal. It makes him wonder. But here's the key. You don't rebuild your feminine energy to get him back. You rebuild it because you miss you. You miss your joy, your peace, your softness, your lightness. You're tired of carrying the weight of connection on your back. Tired of proving you're worthy. Tired of being in fight or flight around someone who should have made you feel safe from the beginning. So start slowly. Take the pressure off. Breathe. Let yourself rest. Play. Feel. Receive. Do the things that make you come alive again. You don't have to announce it. Just become it. Because when you rebuild your feminine energy, you don't have to chase anyone. The right person feels it, and they come closer. Not because you ask them to, but because they can't stay away. One of the most underestimated forms of power in any relationship, especially with men, is non-reaction. Not silence out of spite. Not pretending you're fine when you're not, but genuine non-reaction, the kind that comes from self-trust, emotional control, and knowing your value so deeply that someone else's behavior no longer determines your peace. When a man pulls away, goes cold, or tries to trigger you, your reaction is exactly what gives him confirmation. It tells him, I still affect her. Whether it's anger, panic, jealousy, or sadness, he sees that he still has emotional leverage. And often without even realizing it, men test you just to see if you'll crack, to see if you'll beg, to see if you'll prove you care in the worst possible moment, when he's not showing up. But when you don't react, when you observe instead of over-explain, detach instead of defend, and keep your center instead of spiraling, everything changes. He starts to feel uncertain. He questions what he thought he knew, that you'd always be there, that he could pull away and you'd chase, that your emotions would do the work for him. But now you're no longer reacting. You're responding with nothing at all. And that is powerful, because non-reaction doesn't just protect your dignity, it also keeps the dynamic from becoming performative. You're no longer trying to prove your worth through a text, an emotional outburst, or a desperate attempt to fix it. You're not showing up as the over-functioning version of yourself. You're just being. And that space you create, it's magnetic. You stop leaking energy. You stop feeding drama. You stop trying to change someone who isn't choosing to show up fully. And the moment you stop reacting, he starts to feel the emotional consequences of his actions. For once, without you softening the blow. Now he has to sit with what he's done. The missed call, the ignored message, the distance, it all echoes back to him in your stillness. Non-reaction isn't weakness. It's restraint. It's strength under control. And yes, it's incredibly hard, because your instinct will be to fight for understanding, to defend yourself, to get closure. But you don't need to get loud to be heard. When you stop reacting, you're not suppressing. You're just choosing not to give energy to what doesn't serve your self-worth. And that subtle shift in energy, it forces him to show his true colors. If he cares, he steps up. If he doesn't, your silence becomes the clean exit you never had to beg for. So next time he says something to bait you, goes quiet to trigger you, or test your boundaries, pause. Don't flinch. Don't explain. Just observe. Because the woman who doesn't react is the woman who can't be controlled. And that kind of presence is unforgettable. Emotional detachment isn't about shutting down. It's not about pretending you don't care, acting cold, or suppressing your feelings. It's about staying rooted in you, no matter what someone else is or isn't doing. It's choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over obsession. The reason we struggle with detachment is because, at our core, we crave connection. We want to feel seen, chosen, and safe. So when someone we care about pulls away, goes cold, or becomes inconsistent, we start to attach our identity to their behavior. We tell ourselves stories like, if he cared, I'd feel it. If he loved me, he'd prove it. If he doesn't show up, maybe I wasn't enough. And that story, it's where the emotional chaos begins. Detachment is the skill of separating someone's actions from your worth. It's looking at his silence and not making it mean you're unlovable. It's seeing him be distant and not spiraling into self-blame. It's feeling the absence, but instead of filling it with anxiety, you fill it with self-connection. Because here's the truth. Most people are reacting to their own inner world. His mood swings, mixed signals, or pullbacks may have nothing to do with you, and everything to do with his fears, his past, or his emotional immaturity. But when you're too attached, you'll always personalize his behavior. You'll make it your fault. And that's when you start chasing, overthinking, and losing pieces of yourself in the process. So how do you stay emotionally detached? You start by getting curious, not reactive. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? And why do I want to control this? Is it because you genuinely care, or because you're afraid of being abandoned? Is it love, or fear masquerading as connection? Next, come back to your own energy. When was the last time you poured into you, your passions, your peace, your goal? Emotional detachment grows strongest when your life is full without him. Not because you're avoiding vulnerability, but because you're not relying on someone else to regulate your emotional world. You also need to stop negotiating with potential. Stop clinging to the version of him that only exists in your imagination. Detachment is choosing to see things as they are, not as you hope they could be. And most importantly, remind yourself daily, you don't chase what's meant for you. You don't force love to prove it's real. And you don't shrink yourself to keep someone comfortable. Emotional detachment isn't distance, it's discernment. You feel everything. You love deeply, but you don't lose your center in the process. So stay soft, but grounded, open but aware, loving but not desperate. Because when you learn how to stay emotionally detached, you don't just protect your heart, you elevate your standards. You might be wondering, does any of this really work? And that's fair. It's one thing to hear advice, but it's another to see real stories, real women actually applying these shifts and watching the results unfold. So let me share a few examples that will remind you, you are not crazy for pulling back. And yes, reclaiming your power can change everything. One woman had been dating a guy for 6 months. Things were intense in the beginning, constant texting, spontaneous dates, deep conversations. Then suddenly, he started pulling away. Texts got short, plans became excuses, and her anxieties skyrocketed. She wanted to ask what was wrong, fix it, force clarity, but instead she chose a different path. She didn't text, she didn't beg, she didn't block. She just detached, focused on herself, reconnected with her friends, went back to her hobbies, and stopped monitoring his energy. 3 weeks later, he messaged her, "I don't know what happened, but I miss the way you made me feel. Can we talk?" She didn't get him back by chasing. She got him back by letting go. Another woman was in a long-distance situation where things felt unbalanced. She was always initiating, always giving, always trying to keep the connection alive. When she realized how exhausted she was, she decided to stop showing up where she wasn't being met. She didn't make an announcement. She just pulled back. She didn't post thirst traps. She didn't send passive-aggressive texts. She simply shifted her energy inward. At first he didn't respond, but weeks later, he showed up more consistent than ever, saying he realized he was taking her for granted. Why? Because her absence finally spoke louder than her presence ever could, when it was being ignored. Then there's the story of the woman who never got the guy back, but still won. She was ghosted after what felt like a deep emotional connection. She wanted to text, to ask why, but she didn't. She felt the pain, yes, but she chose to sit with it instead of react from it. Over time, she found something even better than his attention, her own healing. She stopped thinking of his silence as a reflection of her worth, and eventually, she didn't want him back. Not because he didn't matter, but because she realized she deserved more. These stories are powerful, because they remind us when you shift your energy, the entire dynamic shifts with you. Whether he comes back or not is secondary. The real win is that you come back to yourself. You stop leaking your power into people who can't hold it. You stop asking, "How do I keep him?" and start asking, "Do I even want him now that I see him clearly?" That's not a tactic, it's transformation. And the women who embody this, they don't need to chase love, because they've become the kind of woman love doesn't want to lose. Your power move isn't a text. It's not a social media post or a dramatic exit. It's far more potent and far more subtle. It's the decision you make right now to stop reacting from a place of need and start acting from a place of strength. To stop chasing someone who's already checked out and begin choosing yourself first. This is your power move. When you finally decide to own your worth, to protect your peace above all else, something shifts inside. You stop trying to control what he thinks or does. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into his world. And you start living fully unapologetically and on your own terms. That's when the true magic happens. Because men aren't attracted to desperation. They're drawn to confidence, self-respect, and mystery. When you stop giving away your attention so freely, you become a prize instead of a fallback. You become the woman who doesn't just hope for love, she commands it by embodying it within herself first. This isn't about games or manipulation. It's about authenticity. It's about stepping into your feminine power, owning your boundaries, and knowing that your happiness isn't dependent on anyone else. When you live this way, you radiate a kind of energy that's impossible to ignore. So here's what you do next. Commit to yourself. No more chasing. No more blocking and unblocking. No more waiting in silence. Instead, invest in your growth, your joy, and your freedom. Fill your life with things that light you up, people who support you, and habits that strengthen your mind and heart. Remember, the moment you stop trying to control the outcome is the moment you reclaim control over your life. That's your power move. And it's one no one can take away from you. Own it, live it, and watch how everything changes.